for entree, the bye this week, we had the Rebels and the Crusaders. And in the first match on Friday night, we had the Reds and the Force. And what a ripper.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to jump into this one. In terms of new injuries, we had Jack Stracker, who he got a concussion, and Ian Pryor, he hurt his shoulder quite early and was replaced. The Reds got away with this one 31-24. It was a really good game to watch. I talked to a lot of Kiwis as well that thought this was a pretty brilliant game. The Western Force, they started really fast again like they did in round one. They scored 2 tries early with some enterprising play. The scrum was really solid yet again. It was just something that I think they need to utilise more. Their lineouts was terrible yet again. So for them, don't kick the ball out. If you get a penalty, take a tap or a scrum. That's as simple as it is for them.
And there was a lot of Queenslanders in the Force who have really stepped up in this game. They really won. They were playing in front of friends and family, and they really had some blinders there.
Yeah, even including people like Andrew Reddy off the bench. They had quite a few Kiwis, Queenslanders there.
Including Ralston, the winger, and Wagner, the prop, both had huge games.
Yeah, for sure. Look, John O'Lance, I thought, was the better performing of the 2 fly halves. He played really flat to the line. He had a lot of runners outside and willing to hit at pace as well and look for those gaps. It didn't work for him always, and I think he did sort of have an intercept or 2 against him, but none as telling as on the flip side when James O'Connor tried to flood in the attacking line. And Byron Ralston got an intercept almost on his own line, ran 90 metres. And boy, oh boy, is he quick. He just charged in a long way ahead of anyone. And Dalgunu had no chance of catching him. And he scored a try through there. But I think it was a pretty brilliant game by John O'Lance, and I thought he was the better of the 2. His issue, the thing that let him down, he only got 2 of his 4 kicks. One was charged down, which is now the second time we've seen that happen to someone in 2 weeks of rugby. In 4 games, or 8 games, sorry, it's the second charge down. If you are kicking the ball from directly in front, just move it back 5 metres.
Who's kicking from 10 metres?
Drop kick it. Like, it is the easiest kick. If you're going to get charged down, that is pathetic. And he also missed a relatively easy kick, which that was the 4 points that they were down towards the back end of the game. James O'Connor then capitalised and did a drop goal to put him the Reds 7 points ahead. But far out, I mean, those kicks proved telling. The Reds scored 3 tries in 7 minutes. They lifted the intensity to go up 21-14. And just before halftime, that's when Ralston snatched that try and that first missed kick by Lance happened. So the Reds went in 21-19 at halftime. Pace Army, he got his weekly yellow card in Super Rugby. That's his second in 2 weeks for a dangerous tackle. This time he didn't almost kill someone.
It's him and Super. They've got to take turns, Yeah. There's a roster.
There's no taking turns for Pace Army. He will always stick his hands up for a yellow card. But it was a fantastic game to watch. I think there was a lot of talk about Jock with his kick towards the back end. I thought it was a smart choice with the extra time. But in terms of match stats, the Reds had 55% of possession, 61 territory. They had less metres, 405 to 560, but they had double the tackle busts, 34 to 17. They had 89% of their tackles compared to the Force 82%, which I do think is quite an improvement for them. It was 4 tries apiece. The conversions were what separated them, 4 from 4 for Jock and 2 from 4 for Lance. The lineouts for the Reds was 90%, 9 from 10. It was only 71%, 10 from 14 for the Force. Both teams won 100% of their scrums. 9 penalties against the Reds plus their yellow card and 5 for the Force. Byron Ralston, the Queensland youngster playing for the Force from Brothers Club, he got 72 points as the fantasy man of the match. He had 2 tries, making it 3 from 2 matches in Super Rugby, 7 runs for 141 metres. That is 20 metres a run. Granted, 90 of those were off 1 run. 3 tackle busts, 2 line breaks, and 1 offload. Tate McDermott got 65. Chris Fairway, Sortia, 61, Brendan Pangamosa, 59, Liam Wright, 58, Filippo Daugunu, 56, Lucan Salakaya-Lotto, 52. And for the force, my boy Henry Stowers stood up. I think he made 23 tackles. He had 51 points.
He's a beast.
He is.
Very good. All right. Well, no, it was a fantastic game, and yeah, if you haven't done so, I'm sure the highlights or the KO Mini would be really good. But otherwise, just watch the first half. The first 20 minutes, unreal, really. John O'Lance, some of that fly half play, putting the balls out in front, that was fantastic.
He was brilliant. He was really good.
What a difference a week makes. I can't believe we didn't start this entree with that. 2 phenomenal Aussie games, 2 phenomenal Kiwi games. Last week we were sitting here disappointed there was 3 rubbish games. It was awesome all round, and Kiwi fans, Aussie fans, South African fans, everyone around the world, it was champagne rugby all round.
I love my rugby and I love my Kiwis, but if that is the standard of Aussie Super Rugby playing each other, I will happily watch that every week. Don't get me wrong, I want to watch Kiwis, and I will watch Kiwis wherever they're playing, but I will accept that because that was brilliant.
Look, they're slowly winning me around. I might not pick my fantasy team exclusively from New Zealand in the future, but there's a lot of points on offer just there as you rattled off that list of the Reds, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, so this next match was a real close one. On Saturday, first game, we had the Hurricanes and the Blues. Harry, do you want to take us through this one?
Yep. Yeah, so 29-27, the Hurricanes got over the Blues in a little bit of a thriller. I think the Hurricanes were definitely the better side here, though, having said that. Returning in this one, you had Dane Coles coming back from his calf injury. There was a bit of a concern that might be quite serious, but straight back in and looked back to his best. I remember he scored that very, very good line, maybe one pass out from the ruck, and still had his little turn of pace that an old front rower has. Reed Prinsep as well, back from his hamstring injury, scored one as well. So obviously that was the key. But that one off the back of a rolling maul, stole it from, I think, Dane Coles himself, wasn't it? And Fraser Armstrong as well came back from his minor knee injury. I think he was expected to start behind Ben May, who himself was pulled before the game started. I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about why he was pulled, Ben May, but I thought he was excellent last week, and Fraser Armstrong excellent this week.
Look, if I was a girl and he was a good rugby player like that, I'd probably pull him too.
And you have, so.
Right, good. And Aotearoa Black as well, he went down for a pretty heavy knock. The match doctor, not the team doctor, pulled him off for a HIA, which apparently he passed. But then with about 30 minutes to go, they decided just to leave Bodie Barrett at 10 to give him a bit of a run out there. It's obviously pretty disruptive if you're having to lift your whole back line around and then put him back out. So it was good to see them give him an actual opportunity from that position as well.
Was that not a different incident to where Laumape sent him flying into another universe, or was that the incident?
No, I think that was a different one, yeah.
Okay, right.
That was within a minute, so slightly different.
If you watch the highlights from this game, you might. We often refer to the Reds as the Queensland Karevis. It kind of feels like the Wellington Lamapes at the moment.
Absolutely. They should have put player count on him. Anyway, So Lamape, first of all, standing up Beauden Barrett was just outrageous. Showed him the inside, then burnt him on the outside for pace, which we didn't think was possible. See the background there for a bit of a replay. And then about 5 minutes later, he barged right over the top of him down the same left-hand touch line. Beauden Barrett tried to step across and carry him back over him. And Lamape just busted straight through him. There was a photo going around on Twitter of looking from behind Lamape at Beauden Barrett's face. And he's just shocked that he doesn't want to make his hit. And they've just zoomed in on him from 5 meters out from the contact. And Beauden looks terrified.
The nightmare memes have already begun. They're fantastic.
It does look like Lamape was putting himself out there to match himself up against Bodie. So he's going to be having nightmares. Hurricanes, they dominated possession and territory in this one. They controlled most of the game really, really well. I think they had 65% possession, 69% territory. Then the Blues, they just looked tired. They didn't look like themselves at all. We heard at halftime, Halangahu, the assistant coach, say that they needed to pick up their intensity, and Tana Umaga late in the game as well said the exact same thing. So, I mean, both coaches were singing the same message, and that was that they weren't actually on the ball and they weren't up to it for themselves. And I think the post-game interviews were saying the same thing. Where they were good, the Blues, was from their rolling maul. They scored 3 tries, either directly or indirectly from that. So that's turning into a real weapon for them. On the flip side, you had Peter Umunga Jensen, who we were questioning getting the run over Vince Asso. He was great. I thought his best game I've seen him play. Geordie Barrett and Karifi were excellent as well for the Hurricanes. Obviously, we've already mentioned Laumape, who was far and away the man of the match.
Man of the round.
You know, on the flip side, after bagging Bodie, that try that he scored in the first half when he was at first receiver, just putting the afterburners on him, blasting through the line when it looked like there was nothing on. I mean, I think that shows the threat he is at first receiver, and it was disappointing that he didn't get to throw the ball around a little bit more in the 30 minutes that he was playing at fly half. On this one, run meters 571 to 202, so the Hurricanes just with all the play, 31 tackle buster 13. I'm pretty sure all 44 of those were Laumape. And line breaks 14 to 2 as well. So very one-sided. I thought the Hurricane scrum was worth a mention. Didn't turn over any ball, but had the Blues on ice skates all night. And then obviously the fantasy man of the match was Laumape with 72 points, a try, 16 runs for 160 metres, magic 10 a metre. 10 metres a run, 5 tackle busts, 4 line breaks, and a couple of turnovers. You then had Artie Sevilla on 57, Coles and TJ on 47, Kirk Eklund with his first start, 46 point, and Bodie Barrett, 45 points as well.
Good game of footy.
Very good. Yeah, no, absolutely. Down to the wire. Fantastic. Another close game. The rest of the games are all very close, but directly following this was the Tars and the Brumbies out at ANZ Stadium in Sydney. It's kind of good having all of the rugby in Australia in Sydney, but at the same time, I think all of us have been unable to get out to the games, so it's been a little annoying. But I mean, and who wants to go out to ANZ Stadium anyway? Let's be honest. Keep them all up at Brookvale next to me. That worked well. So in this one, we had returning Tom Banks from a foot injury and Tom Robertson for the Tars from a back injury, the Wallabies prop, and he went straight into starting and played the whole game. And the reason he played the whole game was because Angus Bell, the Angus Bell that we all love, he was pulled pre-game with a back niggle. So Tom Robertson, it was like, welcome back, and mate, we need you to play the 80. And I think he did pretty well. Also injured, Noah Lelezio, a hamstring. It looked, he looked pretty torn up about it. I mean, obviously you can limp off or walk off, but what did you guys think of the severity of that?
They're saying they're going for scans to see how severe it was, but it was down the bottom kind of quarter of his hamstring, which is probably the least severe. In hammy injuries, the higher up the thigh from kind of middle upwards becomes more and more severe. So, I mean, it could still be 4 to 6 weeks, which will cook him for the competition because it's so short. But in the big scheme of things, it's not a terrible hamstring injury.
Fair enough. All right. And the other injury worth noting was James Slipper with a concussion during this one. And it's very difficult for the Brumbies just to bring on the other Wallabies starting loose head prop, Scott Seo. So it's a tough gig for them.
They weren't very good. So the Waratahs prop.
This scrum was terrible.
That's fair. I think, look, in this game, the Waratahs started off to an absolute flyer. They put some points on the board, and it just it was kind of like, spoiler alert here for the Chiefs in the next game, but yeah, it was just like the Tars playing some of the best footy they're capable of, and just blowing the Brumbies off the park. Brumbies just kind of looked around, didn't know what to do with themselves, but the one quality that Brumbies do have, which is very Crusader-like, is that they managed to just stay composed and stay in games. And so, despite the Tars starting off with a few tries, the Brumbies were back in it by half-time. I think it was around 20 to 17 for half-time. I might have got that wrong. But they were unlucky, not to go into the break ahead, I think. It was kind of a massive momentum switch. But yeah, in the second half, Harrison just needed to kick his penalty to go 9 up, and they probably would have done enough. But
I think Harrison's letting you down.
Indeed. I actually can't remember. I'm trying to remember what more things that happened in this game. But look, the other positives.
The Tars looked really good for a period, maybe from 50 to 70, and they looked like they were controlling, but they just weren't putting points on the board. They then it kind of went this weird back and forth where both teams are having a real crack trying to score points, and every time they got into a good position, they would turn the ball over or they would give a penalty away. So really enterprising, good play with good aggressive defense as well. But it was just that final execution from both teams where I don't think they had quite the same kind of composure under pressure when things were starting to go their way that some of the Kiwi sides did.
One thing that wasn't written down here is how good was it to watch when the Tars had a penalty advantage. Will Harrison decided to tap the ball and crossfield kick to James Ram, who ended up scoring. That was just awesome to see the confidence of those two blokes to call that and pull it off.
Yeah, you love to see those type of quick tap moves. I mean, Tate McDermott did a quick tap scrum half try in round one. That kind of stuff.
That's common, mate. This is special. This was so different.
Long crossfield kick. Hey, on this one, I wrote a bit of blurb about whinging about Angus Gardner. I should say, for context, he did give a pretty dodgy yellow card to Andy Muirhead in the first half for some to level it up a little bit. But pretty much every close call in the last 10 minutes went against the Brumbies. Went against the Waratahs, which is kind of what piggybacked the Brumbies down before their try as well. And then in the last play, second last ruck, Cooper was all over the ball. The way it had been reffed all night, it had to be a penalty, and they just didn't give it. And they're so quick to ping anyone when the hands are on the ball. It was really, really disappointing. And that was the game. That was the last chance that they had to actually attack the ball. So Cooper was filthy. Every Waratahs supporter was filthy as well.
I agree. And look, we all, with our Waratahs coloured glasses on, were definitely filthy. But at the end of the day, I mean, a halfback, bloody Isaac Fine scored a try through two back rowers, Lockie Swinton and Will Harris. Now, it was obviously definitely Lockie Swinton's fault, but how do they not tackle a halfback, mate? It's not like there was a huge gap. There was no excuse for missing it.
There's no excuse, but it was a very weird thing to happen. They also had Tom Robertson coming up from the inside, run directly into the ref, which meant then the structure of where they were all standing was destroyed as well. They didn't have the inside runner coming up and What was that?
So the back rows are clearly the bludgers of the team.
Now, look, getting into some of the stats. Well, actually, the last comment of the game was how good did Tommy Horton look? The Tars. I reckon he'll be starting now. Yeah, he was fantastic. So
that won Nelson the game, mind you, picking up Horton. I picked up Eklund. He picked up Horton. That was the game.
Horton was clearly better. Back Aussies, mate.
Very good. All right. So anyway, getting into the stats. What's this Rugbycology stat we've got here?
So yeah, this was something that was awesome to see. Rugbycology on Twitter @Rugbycology. This guy's doing live stats for the game and very insightful stats. One that I got out of this game was that for a 3-pass sequence, so you have to at least play three passes. The Tars did it 16 times in the opposition's 50 metres, where the Brumbies did it only once in the Tars 50 metres. So the Tars were throwing the ball around and actually chancing their arm in the attacking zone, where the Brumbies shut up shop and try to play in tight.
Very good. All right. Well, look, I would love to quickly gloss over these stats, but some of them are really good. So possession and territory, Brums had 58% of both. Metres, 300 Tars, 450 to the Brums. Had quite a lot more. The Brums had 27, tackle bust to 15. Turnovers 1, as Harry mentioned about. The Tars only with 2 and the Brumbies with 7, so weren't lucky to get a few of those at the end. And then the big surprise was the set piece dominance by the Tars. 100% of their scrums they won. The Brumbies 67%. Lineouts Tars 90% to the Brumbies 64%. Who saw that coming?
That's 8
in a line out. In the last 20, they could not win a line out.
That is 8 lost lineouts. That is absurd.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And then for fantasy man of the match, we had Tommy Horton, who bagged himself a try and just had a generally good game. He scored 66 points. And for the Brumbies, the only one really worth mentioning was Robbie Valentini, 45 points, starting to find a bit of form again. So
both mine.
That's it. How good?
For the record, selling Horton short also had 3 turnovers, 7 carries, 15 tackles, a couple of tackle busts, and a line break as well.
Were those important? I mean, that's it. No, okay. Look, he was fantastic. We can't talk him up enough. So, very good. All right, and on to the last fixture of round 3. We had the Chiefs and the Highlanders, and if it was a competition for closest games, this one won. Yeah.
This game was an absolute thriller. It actually wasn't as close score-wise as the last game, Craig's. I'll point that out. But they...
I just meant went down to the wire, mate.
It was very much down to the wire. The Chiefs lost this one 31-33. I'll go into detail in a second. But Josh Ioane returned from his groin injury coming on at second half to the fly half role. Anton Leonard-Brown returned from his concussion and he was back and firing. Mitch Karpik returned from a concussion. New injuries, Aiden Ross injured himself in the second minute or so. Leg or Achilles. I haven't been able to find any updates since. Have you, Harry?
I think it was an ankle. Just remembering the commentary, I think it was just an ankle.
Look, today, they said ankle or Achilles, but they hadn't said anything when I looked just before the podcast.
Harry, hold that trophy tight because you're not going to have it again at the end of this year. Chiefs came out firing in this one. Brilliant start, back to their signature super fast-paced footy. Just runners in motion all the way around the paddock. And I mean, boy, oh boy, do they have a scary back line, throwing Alamalo back into the starting side as well. They're absolutely brilliant.
It was just options, mate. Like how many runners they had. I mean, even Boshier was he hit this fantastic line, split the team in the middle of the field, and ran in 25 meters untouched for the try. Like they just had so many options and runners hitting these awesome lines.
Boshier was
the best average in the game at the moment on fantasy as well.
Boshier was an absolute standout in this one. He also closed that game out and almost won it for the Chiefs, stealing ball after ball in that last 5 to 10 minutes. I think he had 2 or 3 in the last 10 minutes, penalties or turnovers. Just the Chiefs didn't want to round it out for him. They were up to a 24-0 lead after about the same amount of minutes. Rob Thompson got yellow carded to make matters worse. Nankerville, for his first start of Super Rugby Aotearoa, he combined very well with Anton Leonard-Brown, giving Anton Leonard-Brown that platform. He didn't do too much himself to break through that defensive line, but Anton Leonard-Brown was back in form. The Highlanders had some good phase play, but the Chiefs' defence was very tough and very solid early on in this one.
Yeah, no, the Highlanders had some of their best attack, but the Chiefs were just up to the task. They just couldn't break it. Even Shannon Frizzell, who carried about 5 Crusaders with him over the try line, he had a few big runs. He couldn't get through.
Yeah. With 6 minutes left to go, the Chiefs were up 31-17. My wife told me to put money on the Highlanders, and I was shaking my head at her, saying she let me down. But she said to me as well, they're still in this. She doesn't know that much about rugby, but boy, oh boy, was she correct. Nareki, as soon as he came on, he just hit the ball with pace. I don't even think the ball was meant for him. And he ran it in from his own half and just defeated the whole Chiefs line to score in the 75th minute.
Yeah, he terrorised them, but you could also tell he was hitting lines and he was looking for those really tired forwards. And boy, were they tired. Yeah. The Chiefs had done a hell of a lot of defending.
For sure. But yeah, comeback of the year was completed. Scoring in overtime, the Highlanders to defeat the Chiefs at the death, with Theo Tompkinson slotting through to score under the posts. Interestingly, Rugbycology, again, they had a stat here that the Highlanders had 31.25% of overlap. So throughout the whole match, almost a third of the time they had overlaps and they had options out wide. It just took later on in the match before they started to be able to utilise that, because the Chiefs were tired from doing all their work in tight to stop the ball getting out wide. Other stats were the 3-pass sequence. We talked a little bit with the Tars. The Highlanders had 20 3-pass sequences, whereas the Chiefs only had 7, electing to keep it in a little bit tighter. The Highlanders had 62% of possession, 65% of territory. The Chiefs only ran 278 metres compared to 635 for the Highlanders. Highlanders had 27-17 tackle busts, 19-4 line breaks, 64-33 game line carries, 14-4 offloads, just dominating in most things. Tackle percentage, it was 82% for the Chiefs, 78% for the Highlanders, and there was parity at scrum and lineouts, 12 penalties each and a yellow card each. Man of the match, we touched on him, Lachlan Boschia, 73 points. He scored himself a try, 3 tackle busts, 2 line breaks, 10 tackle busts. That's 10 tackles, that cannot be correct, and 2 turnovers. Aaron Smith also had 73 points with a try, a tackle bust, 2 line breaks, a try assist, and 91 passes. For the Chiefs, Anton Leonard-Brown got 51 points, and Bradley Slater got 50 points. Highlanders, Shannon Frizzell got 70 points, while Marino Makieli-Tu'u got 52 points.
And just to pour some salt on the wound for Nelson, if it was the first time they took off Mikaeli Tu'u and left Shannon Frizzell on. Now, I think you can't take Frizzell off, but to be fair, I wouldn't have taken Tu'u off either. Find someone else to take him off, you know. But no, Frizzell's playing out of his skin. This is what we wanted to see from him.
Early, like 45 minutes in too. Absolute stitch up.
Good stuff.
Very good. All right, that's our entree done and deuced. So let's move on to the main course.